So let's move on to understand how this growth can be fueled. And yes, I do mean we have to reinvent ourselves. We had this ring fence scenario which we spoke about. With this ring fence, there are certain things which we have to unlearn as a part of that community which came, or that society which came from the 70s and 80s. Once we start unlearning certain things, we are actually untangling ourselves to move forward. There are certain things which we have to learn as a part of this. And when we do this, we get ourselves straight into the concept of growth. Let's get into a deeper dive. The first skill an individual should have is an ability to listen. I always think about listening like this. Listening is a key for me to understand what thought process is going on in somebody else's mind, which otherwise I would not have had an opportunity. The only opportunity I would have to understand somebody else's mind and thought process is by talking to them, and mostly by listening to them. And listening is a very important skill for an individual to become a leader. There are a lot of benefits. As I told you, it is a key, and there is no other key to open somebody's mind to understand it. Doctors are trying, but I don't think they have succeeded to the extent of simple listening can do. Active listening is a very important attribute a person should have. And what is that active listening? When somebody is talking to you, it is important that you lend not only your ears but your full concentration to the person. It's not just you see the person eye to eye, but you understand what they are meaning. Once you understand, that gives you an opening of what perspective probably you may not have had. The person who is talking to you is coming from a different set of experience. Each person's experience means a lot because their thought process is characterized by their experience. So from their experience, when they are thinking about something and they are talking to you about it, you get a perspective which is a different perspective than your own. There are a lot of chances that you would understand something which you probably have not thought about, or you would understand how that person is thinking and what his or her perspective is. Listening is a great skill, whether you are talking to a 4-year-old kid or a 50-year-old person, or if it is a boardroom conversation. All through, listening is a great skill to have. With the key to opening other person's mind and understanding it, it is very important that this key requires a password. And that password is smile. You could see a lot of leaders, a lot of public personalities. One thing which they wear with them all the time is a smile. And that smile has a lot of meaning in it. And it is a very powerful tool as well. It hides a lot of things which otherwise your face would be showing out. And it also conveys a message that you are very actively listening and you're appreciating whatever the other person is saying. I never meant that you're agreeing with the other person. You're only appreciating the other person's viewpoint. So listening is a great skill to have for a person. Now, when we were in schools, listening was a key attribute. Most of us would have never had an opportunity to cross-question a teacher. Unlike today's kids, we were never allowed to cross-question a teacher. Remember, I'm talking about that 90% community, not that 10% empowered community. So listening is still a great skill when you want to move into a new role, a bigger role. The next item a person has to understand is people. Different experience and thinking brings in different levels of ability. At any point in time, this is not the same level as you or somebody else would be having. And what I mean by this is every person is unique by their experience, by their thought process. Now just consider this. We had a lot of friends. We have parents, siblings, spouse, kids, colleagues. Each of them go through various sets of experience each day in their own domain area. And that is what characterizes their thought process. And what do each person expect from us? Each person expects the other person to understand. And this understanding is the basis of living that we have. This expectation is an assumption. And in most cases, we also have that. Right now when I'm talking, I'm assuming that you are understanding what I'm talking. This assumption is the biggest failure which people have many a times when they open up on a specific topic or when they get onto a critical path. They think less about whether the person is really understanding or not. They assume that everything is clear. And now this understanding is very important because without understanding, there is no alignment between people. Unless thinking is aligned, you can't really cooperate with each other to get things done. And as a project manager, as a leader, it is an extremely important characteristic for a person to understand the other person. Now remember, for understanding, you have to listen. So listening becomes the fundamental attribute of a person. Along with understanding a person, what it means to really get closer to them and align with them to work. There are a few things which you need to understand. What are they? When listening to people, what do you really hear from them? Either you hear somebody talking about their accomplishments or viewpoints or obstacles they are facing in life. It'll be some new ideas or a thought process which they have. Now it is very important to appreciate people when they are really doing a great job or when they are really accomplished something. And it is very important to empathize with situations which they are going through. You may not be able to help directly, but you have to empathize. And that empathy is an important, very important attribute for a person who is a leader. If you want to start practicing leadership, start practicing listening first, understand people, and then empathize with them. These three put you on a very robust platform to work with others. And we have heard from different training courses that a leader always rallies people with them. If you don't understand somebody, if they don't align with you or you don't align with them, how do you think people will rally with you? So it is important to understand, to live in their shoes, understand their problems, empathize with them. Forget if you're not helping, but at least to empathize. Patience is another important characteristic of a person. Sometimes when people are talking, things may not be directed at you. It may be something that you are not really interested in. There may be things which are done, but it is not directed at you. Unfortunately, it hits. The attribute of patience is a key thing to understand the other person, that what he or she really meant, and to guide them into the right way. Now, how can patience really guide a person? Somebody probably has done something, or rather you're trying to do something without patience. What happens at that point is your thought process is cut short. You're not going to the depth of things before you could execute something. And you execute it, which will impact somebody. When impact starts, that's when the alignment will start going off. And that alignment is a very important attribute in your organization for you to grow. If that alignment doesn't happen, then the rest of it which you do is of futile effort. Remember, people come with emotions. So you're all dealing with people here. Forget your business, forget your numbers. Those are things which you need to handle any which ways. But those are things which will fall in place only when you understand people, when you empathize with them. And when you work with people, one thing which is very common is emotions. I'm sure most of you would have experienced this kind of a scenario. Either we are extremely happy on something which has happened or extremely upset. And same with others as well. And when these kind of emotions are shared, it's just very important that we stay at a mature level to understand that it is an emotional impact which is coming in. We have to recognize what is emotion and what is intentional. Something coming out of emotional disturbance should be absorbed in, which is a very important character of a leader. If a leader is not able to understand that difference between emotion and intention, it will become difficult for him to transact real business in real critical areas. Because when dealing with people, emotion is an inevitable thing. And finally, as I said, all these attributes will make you understand people with whom you're working, whether it is your colleagues, your superiors, your customers, and extend it further, it can be your family members. So moving on, with all these people-centered characteristics,